The frozen wind cut through Marcus Chen's face like 1,000 tiny blades as he stood at the edge of the frozen Lena River in northern Siberia. At 47 years old, this American documentary filmmaker had seen extreme environments before, but nothing had prepared him for the brutality of -40 degrees Celsius. He had traveled from Seattle to this remote corner of Russia to document the annual winter fishing festival of the indigenous Saka people, but what he was about to witness would change his understanding of human endurance forever. The village of Zhigansk, population barely 3,000, was preparing for their most important event of the year, a celebration that would feed hundreds of families through the harshest months of winter. Marcus pulled his thermal hood tighter around his face, his breath forming instant ice crystals in the air. Beside him stood Nikolai Ivanov, a 62-year-old Saka elder whose weathered face told stories of decades surviving in one of the coldest inhabited places on Earth. "You Americans think you know cold," Nikolai said in heavily accented English, a slight smile crossing his lips. "But cold here, it is different. Cold here has teeth." Marcus had arrived 3 days earlier, his equipment carefully packed to withstand the extreme temperatures. His camera batteries were kept close to his body to prevent them from dying instantly in the cold, and his fingers were wrapped in specialized gloves that allowed just enough dexterity to operate his gear. The village itself looked like something from another world, small wooden houses with smoke rising from chimneys, surrounded by an endless expanse of white. The river, normally a flowing waterway during the brief summer months, was now a highway of ice nearly 2 meters thick. Nikolai explained the plan as they walked toward the fishing site. For 3 days each winter, the entire village came together to catch, process, and distribute fish that would sustain the community. But this wasn't fishing as Marcus knew it. This was industrial-scale survival. "We drill holes, very big holes, through the ice," Nikolai continued, gesturing with his thick mittens. "The fish, they gather in deep pools under the ice. We use nets, very long nets. But the hard part, the very hard part, is bringing them up and moving them." Marcus had read about this tradition, but reading and experiencing were entirely different things. As they approached the fishing site, he saw dozens of villagers already at work. Men and women bundled in layers of fur and modern winter gear worked with mechanical efficiency, their movements practiced from years of repetition. The sound of ice drilling filled the air, a grinding mechanical roar that seemed to disturb the pristine silence of the frozen landscape. Dmitry Sokolov, a 34-year-old fisherman who would become Marcus's guide for the next 72 hours, approached with a thermos of hot tea. "You will need this," Dmitry said, his English better than Nikolai's. "Every hour hot tea, otherwise your body, it forgets how to be warm." Marcus accepted gratefully, the steam from the tea instantly freezing on his beard. Dmitry was built like a bear, his shoulders broad from years of physical labor, his hands scarred and powerful. He had been doing this since he was 12 years old, learning from his father and grandfather before him. If you're watching this and wondering what human endurance really looks like, subscribe to this channel because we document the most extreme human experiences that most people will never witness, and hit that notification bell so you never miss these incredible stories. The first hole was complete by noon, a perfect circle nearly 3 meters in diameter cut through the ice. Marcus positioned himself carefully, filming as the net was lowered into the dark water below. The net was over 200 meters long, weighted at the bottom and marked with floats that would remain just under the ice. "The fish here, they are huge," Dmitry explained as they worked. "Nelma, muksun, omel. These fish grow big in cold water. One fish can be 20-30 kilograms. We are not fishing for sport. We are fishing to survive winter." The temperature was dropping as the sun began its brief arc across the sky. At this latitude, daylight in January lasted barely 5 hours. Marcus knew they would be working through the night, the site illuminated by powerful generators and floodlights that cast eerie shadows across the ice. By nightfall, 6 holes had been drilled at intervals along a kilometer stretch of river, connected by nets that formed an underwater maze. Now came the waiting. The nets would stay submerged for 18 hours, giving the fish time to swim into them. During this time, the crew would rest in shifts, maintaining the holes to prevent them from refreezing and monitoring the weather. A storm was forecast for the following evening, which meant they would need to work faster than usual. Marcus spent the first night in Dmitry's family home, a small but warm wooden house heated by a massive wood-burning stove that dominated the main room. Dimitri's wife, Svetlana, served a dinner of reindeer stew and black bread, her hospitality making Marcus feel like family despite the language barrier. Their 3 children, ranging from 8 to 15, watched the American with curious eyes, giggling when he attempted to speak Russian. "Tomorrow will be the hardest day," Dimitri said as they sat around the stove. "When we pull the nets, we will see how much fish we have caught. Last year, we pulled 8,000 kilograms over 3 days. This year, we hope for more. More fish means more food for everyone." Marcus asked about the distribution system. Dimitri explained that every family in the village received an equal share based on household size, with extra portions going to elders and families with many children. Nothing was sold, everything was shared. This wasn't capitalism or socialism. This was pure survival culture refined over thousands of years. The night was interrupted every 2 hours by radio checks. Teams were stationed at each hole, ensuring the ice remained stable and the equipment secure. At 4 in the morning, Marcus accompanied Dimitri on a check. The darkness was absolute except for their headlamps, and the cold was so intense that breathing required conscious effort. Marcus's nose hairs froze with each inhale, and his lungs burned. "This is normal cold," Dimitri said with a laugh. "In February it gets really cold." At the hole, everything was frozen solid. The crew member on duty, a woman named Olga who looked to be in her 50s, was using a specially designed drill to keep the hole open. She worked mechanically, her movements efficient despite the brutal conditions. "Olga lost her husband 5 years ago," Dimitri said quietly as they walked back. "But she still comes to fish every year. Everyone comes. This is not about choice. This is about survival." Dawn arrived slowly, a gradual lightening of the sky rather than a sunrise. By 8 o'clock, the entire village seemed to be mobilizing. Sleds pulled by snowmobiles arrived carrying equipment, supplies, and more workers. The generators roared to life and the real work began. The first net was pulled at 9 o'clock. Marcus positioned himself to film as a dozen workers lined up along a rope attached to the net. On Dimitri's signal, they began to pull in synchronized movements, their bodies leaning back against the weight. The net emerged from the water heavy with ice and fish, hundreds of silvery bodies thrashing in the mesh. "Now we work fast," Dimitri shouted over the noise. "The fish freeze in minutes. We must sort them, gut them, and get them to storage before they freeze solid." What followed was organized chaos. Fish were dumped onto tarps spread across the ice. Workers moved with incredible speed, sorting by species and size. The larger fish, some weighing over 30 kilograms, as Dimitri had promised, were set aside. Smaller fish were processed immediately, gutted with quick knife strokes that spoke of decades of practice. Marcus found himself helping despite his role as documentarian. There was no room for observers in this operation. He was handed a knife and shown how to gut the fish, his fingers becoming numb within minutes despite his gloves. The fish kept coming. Net after net was pulled, each one heavy with the catch. By noon, they had processed over 2,000 kilograms, and they had barely started. The ice around the holes became a carpet of fish guts and blood, steam rising as the warm entrails met the frozen air. The workers barely spoke. Everyone focused on their tasks. This was muscle memory and community coordination at its finest. The storm arrived earlier than forecast, rolling in from the north like a white wall. Within minutes, visibility dropped to less than 10 meters. The wind picked up, creating whiteout conditions that made work nearly impossible. But stopping wasn't an option. Fish were still in the nets, and they needed to be retrieved before the storm worsened. Dimitri made the call to continue working, but with safety protocols in place. Workers were tied together in groups of 3, ensuring no one could wander off and become lost in the blizzard. Marcus tied himself between Dimitri and Olga, his camera protected under layers of waterproof covering. The world became nothing but white and wind and the immediate task at hand. Pulling nets in a blizzard was exponentially harder. The rope was slick with ice. The visibility made coordination difficult, and the cold seemed to penetrate every layer of clothing. Marcus's face was completely covered except for his eyes, which he had to constantly wipe clear of ice. His body was operating on pure adrenaline and stubbornness. Hours blurred together. Pull, sort, gut, repeat. The pile of processed fish grew steadily despite the conditions. By nightfall, they had reached 6,000 kilograms, but exhaustion was setting in. Marcus had been working for nearly 20 hours with only brief breaks. His muscles screamed, his hands were beyond numb, and his feet felt like blocks of ice. But looking around at the villagers, many of whom were older than him, all still working with determined focus, he felt ashamed to even consider stopping. Dmitri noticed Marcus struggling and pulled him aside during a brief lull. "You need rest," he said firmly. "Go to the warming tent 30 minutes. Hot tea and food." Marcus wanted to protest, but Dmitri wasn't asking. The warming tent was a blessed relief. Inside, a propane heater created a pocket of warmth that felt like paradise. Several other workers were there, eating dried fish and drinking tea from thermoses. No one spoke much, everyone too exhausted for conversation. Marcus sat down heavily, his body suddenly aware of every ache and pain. An elderly woman offered him a piece of smoked fish. He accepted, nodding his thanks. The fish was dense and salty and absolutely delicious. She smiled at him, her face deeply lined but her eyes kind. In that moment, write in the comments, "Survival is not about strength, it's about community," if you understand why these people do this every year. After 30 minutes, Marcus forced himself back to his feet. The storm had intensified, but so had the resolve of the workers. They were going to finish this, weather be damned. The final nets were the hardest. Everyone was exhausted. The storm was at its peak, and the cold had become a living enemy. But one by one, the nets came up. The last net broke the 8,000 kilogram mark. As it was hauled onto the ice, a cheer went up from the workers, barely audible over the wind, but unmistakably triumphant. Dmitri grabbed Marcus in a bear hug, both men laughing with exhaustion and relief. They had done it. 72 hours of brutal work in conditions that would kill most people, and they had pulled it off. The final phase was transportation. The processed fish were loaded onto sleds, each one pulled by snowmobiles that made multiple trips between the fishing site and the village storage facilities. These facilities were essentially ice caves, naturally refrigerated chambers carved into permafrost, where the fish would remain frozen until needed. The celebration began 3 days later, after everyone had recovered enough to appreciate what they had accomplished. The village gathered in the community center, a large wooden building that served as school, meeting hall, and social center. Long tables were set up, and the feast began. Marcus was given a place of honor, seated next to Nikolai and Dmitri. The meal was extraordinary, every dish featuring the fish they had caught. Smoked nelma, fried muksun, fish soup with wild herbs, fish dumplings, fish prepared in ways Marcus had never imagined. There was also reindeer meat, wild berries preserved from summer, and homemade vodka that burned all the way down. Between courses, villagers stood to speak. They thanked the fishing crews. They remembered those who had passed away since last year. They welcomed the new babies born into the community. It wasn't just a feast. It was a reaffirmation of community bonds that kept these people alive in one of Earth's harshest environments. Nikolai stood and spoke in Saka, his words translated by Dmitri. "We have lived here for thousands of years. The snow, the cold, the darkness, these things do not defeat us. Why? Because we work together. Because we share everything. Because we know that survival is not individual. It is collective." The words hit Marcus hard. In his life back in Seattle, surrounded by technology and comfort, he had forgotten what it meant to truly depend on others. These people lived or died as a community. There was no alternative. As the evening wore on and the vodka flowed more freely, Marcus found himself in deep conversation with Dmitri. "Why do you stay?" Marcus asked. "You're young, educated. You could leave, find easier work." Dmitri was quiet for a moment. "Where would I go? To a city where nobody knows my name, where people live alone in their apartments and don't speak to their neighbors? Here, I am part of something. My children are part of something. Yes, it is hard, but it is real." If you made it this far in this story, you've witnessed something most people never will, the raw reality of human survival and community. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because we bring you stories from the edges of human experience that you won't find anywhere else. And if you watched until here, leave a comment saying, "I watched until here," so I can get to know you and know who really enjoys the stories on this channel. The celebration continued late into the night. Children ran between the tables playing games, elders told stories, and the fish that had cost so much effort was consumed with gratitude and joy. Marcus filmed it all, knowing that this footage would become some of the most important of his career. As he packed up his equipment near midnight, preparing for his departure the next day, Svetlana approached with a package wrapped in cloth. "For your family," she said through Dimitri's translation. "So they know what you did here." Inside was a large piece of smoked fish, carefully prepared and wrapped. Marcus felt tears prick his eyes, embarrassed by the emotion but unable to stop it. These people had nothing by American standards, yet they were giving him part of their winter food supply. The next morning, as the small plane that would take him back to civilization warmed up on the village's ice runway, Marcus stood with Dimitri one last time. "Thank you," Marcus said, the words feeling inadequate, "for letting me be part of this." Dimitri gripped his shoulder. "You worked hard. You earned your place at our table. Come back next year. We will be here, doing the same thing, surviving together." As the plane lifted off and the village disappeared below him, Marcus looked at his hands, still scarred and rough from the work. He thought about the 8,000 kilograms of fish, the 72 hours of brutal labor, the community that refused to be defeated by one of Earth's harshest environments. He had come to document a fishing expedition and had instead witnessed the essence of human resilience and community. If this story moved you, hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to understand what real strength looks like. These stories matter, and your engagement helps us continue bringing them to the world.